I pulled into my usual parking spot with a sigh, glancing at the sign displaying my name, Aiden Lopez, Esquire, fixed on the wall ahead. Yet again, I couldn't shake that familiar pang of dissatisfaction. Another morning dawned where I longed to trade places with someone else. Thursday loomed ahead, a couple more days to slog through before any relief would come, and yet I already felt drained. It wasn't physical tiredness weighing me down, rather, it was the burden of emotional exhaustion. My job, though filled with routine administrative tasks, had taken a toll on my spirit. Sitting in the driver's seat, I paused for a moment, taking a sip of the coffee I had just grabbed, and contemplated my situation. Is this the culmination of a law degree? I pondered silently. All those years of intense study, I had pictured myself righting serious wrongs, advocating for justice for those who needed it most. Instead, here I am, shuffling through divorce papers and defending those who have been served with them. A significant part of my clientele consists of unfaithful spouses, and my role is to secure them favorable settlements. They call what I do family law, a bitterly ironic term for someone who earns a living by breaking apart families. In the realm of my profession lies a somber truth. While books and films glorify criminal lawyers, the reality is far from glamorous. They're often regarded as the bottom rung, their clientele sometimes even more objectionable than mine. Yet, when the need arises, individuals seek out the best representation money can buy, regardless of the moral landscape. However, most are merely a step above the personal injury lawyers vying for attention on television screens. At the pinnacle of the legal hierarchy reside the corporate attorneys, esteemed and envied. Below them lie the tax specialists and the family lawyers handling wills and trusts, often deemed mundane but undeniably valuable. Within the family law sphere, those specializing in divorce hover just beneath. Let's face it, I thought, I was never destined to be a crusader for justice. As a middling student in law school, this was always the destination for someone like me. Yet, I've carved out a comfortable living, and occasionally I encounter a client who makes the journey worthwhile. It's a rarity, but it does occur. Exiting my car, I grabbed my coffee and briefcase before heading into the office. With time to spare before my secretary's arrival, I left the door to my inner sanctum slightly ajar and settled in to prepare for my first appointment. Man, this chair molds to me like it's custom-made, I muttered, taking a hefty gulp from my coffee cup. Suddenly, a voice from behind startled me. "When did you sneak in?" I nearly leaped out of my skin, whirling around to retort. "Could you quit with the stealth entrances?" Emily was chuckling. Emily, my secretary, possessed that uncanny ability to glide through space soundlessly, always observant, always in the know. She had this empathetic knack for easing clients' tensions, fostering a sense of security while maintaining order in the office and effortlessly anticipating my needs. By the time clients made it to my inner sanctum, the tears had dried, the shouting had subsided, and we settled into composed, thoughtful conversations. Emily was a gem, and sometimes I pondered how I'd manage without her. "Your first appointment is with Camila Carter. She's scheduled for a settlement conference at 9. Her husband's attorney is Ryan Hughes. This marks the second attempt at reaching an agreement. Here are her files." With that, she placed a neat stack of documents on my desk and headed towards the exit. Glancing back, she added, "I've got a fresh pot brewing, and there are donuts if you need a snack after your first cup." With a smile, she disappeared, shutting the door softly behind her. Donuts, I mused inwardly, we certainly don't want them lingering any longer than necessary. Briefly, I contemplated the opposing counsel. I'd crossed paths with Ryan for roughly 5 years. He was formidable and assertive yet principled. He wouldn't knowingly advocate falsehoods, and he'd swiftly challenge any lawyer who dared deceive him. A straight shooter, Ryan strived to secure the best outcomes for his clients without tarnishing his own reputation. If I were being honest, I confess I respected the guy. I reached for the Carter files and began my review. Though I knew the details, over time the names tended to blur together, prompting me to refresh my memory. Names carried weight in my line of work. Clients didn't take kindly to their lawyer fumbling over details. Like that witness, what was his name? The one with the dog? Or was it jogging? Nope, that didn't inspire confidence at all. Glancing at my briefing sheet, a trusty outline I always prepared to highlight key essentials, I swiftly recollected the key points. This was a particularly acrimonious one. They tied the knot straight out of high school. If I had a nickel for every time both held down menial jobs, shared a single car, occupied a dingy apartment in a rough neighborhood, accused her of flirting, she accused him of infidelity, yet no concrete evidence supported either claim. Damn, it was like dealing with two bickering adolescents. Exhausting. I drew in a deep breath. They never stood a chance, boss. I startled, nearly dropping the files. Can you please refrain from sneaking up on me like that? She grinned, unrepentant. You're talking to yourself again. I took another deep breath, willing my heart rate to steady. You didn't overhear me out there, did you? Nope, just came in to inform you that Ryan Hughes called to say they'll be running a few minutes late. Yeah, Ryan's probably trying to rein in the husband. He's a bit of a hothead, and Ryan struggled to keep him in check last time. Sounds like a riot. I'll keep the speaker channel open in the conference room just in case. You know, I've practiced dialing 911 if needed, she chuckled, but knowing her, she probably had indeed rehearsed it, ready to act even in the dark. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. In the meantime, can I get you anything? She truly is the highlight of my day, I grinned. No, I'm still nursing my first cup, thanks. Just give me a heads up when Mrs. Carter arrives, and then you can show her in with a quiet exit. She left me to delve back into the Carter paperwork. Cases like this grated on my nerves. It felt like dealing with two petulant children, each too caught up in their own hurt feelings to hear the other out. They'd made a mess of their lives by marrying too young, and now they were compounding it with a pointless divorce. If I were to be frank, Camila Carter was a decent kid, just too green for marriage, much like her husband. Like many young women, she craved validation and a dash of excitement. I'd wager she hadn't strayed, but I bet even more that she enjoyed a bit of harmless flirting. It seemed as natural to her as breathing. Heck, she'd even turned on the charm when she came to hire me. Her husband's jealousy was understandable, but his way of handling it was all wrong. Two wrongs don't make a right, or a marriage, for that matter. She'd filed for divorce initially, and he retaliated in kind, both citing infidelity without assurance of proof. She'd emptied their joint accounts and retreated to her parents' home, while he landed himself in hot water by picking fights. She keyed his car at his workplace and wound up in cuffs. Both were on the brink of losing their livelihoods over nothing. As I pondered my next move, a knock interrupted my thoughts. Emily announced Mrs. Carter's arrival, escorting her into my office. I offered her a seat by my desk, and we began our discussion. So, this marks our second attempt at a settlement conference. I'm sure you remember our first go-round, she nods, and I sense a twinge of embarrassment, but there's more beneath the surface. I can already discern the simmering anger, but it's not solely anger, it's laced with pain and sorrow. I wager she won't make it through the meeting without breaking down. Contrary to the dramatizations on TV, a woman's tears won't sway legal decisions unless there's a jury involved, they merely irk the professionals striving to navigate through the complexities. You need to stay composed today, keep a clear head. Try to maintain emotional detachment if possible. Both you and your husband are young, and truth be told, there isn't much to quarrel over. Let's work toward resolution so you can move forward with your life. There are established guidelines for these situations, and I can assure you that regardless of the outcome, it'll align closely with those guidelines. It's just a matter of how much noise you want to make before it's settled, bearing in mind you're paying me by the hour. She nods, but I'm not entirely convinced she's truly absorbing my words. We delve into the claims and filings. They both demand everything yet possess nothing. Soon, Emily knocks on the door, announcing Ryan and his client's arrival. I turn to Camila, inquiring, "You haven't crossed paths with your husband since our last meeting?" She shakes her head, murmuring, "No." "All right, let's remain composed and aim to resolve this, agreed?" She nods, and we proceed to the conference room. Emily had impeccably arranged everything as usual. Ryan had his coffee, and there were 4 bottles of chilled water on the table. We took our seats, and with just a glance at Ryan, I could sense this wouldn't unfold smoothly. We commenced with the division of property, which, given the scant possessions, proceeded smoothly enough. Each retained the vehicle they brought into the marriage, their meager retirement accounts remained untouched, and their modest savings were split evenly. Joint credit cards had been settled and closed. He agreed to maintain her on his health insurance for 6 months, affording her time to secure her own coverage. As for the apartment, he retained it while she had already vacated. Simple enough. Their furnishings, mostly hand-me-downs from their parents' basements, were divided without much fuss. But as always, there's a snag. It's always something. Was it the books? No. Music? Negative. It's the cat. Who gets custody of the cat? He insisted. I paid for Simba, so I should keep him. You gave me Simba as a Christmas present. He was a gift. You can't just reclaim him, she argued. The argument spiraled on for 30 minutes until it dawned on me, the cat symbolized the children they never had. Where's King Solomon when you need him? After a futile half-hour, I proposed tabling the cat discussion for later. Remarkably, this quelled both parties, and peace settled once more. We moved on to a roster of wedding gifts and household acquisitions, navigating through reluctant negotiations until we reached the inevitable source of contention, the rings. He demanded the return of the rings he bestowed upon her, but she adamantly refused. Tempers ignited, and angry accusations flew across the table. He raised his voice, she matched his intensity. In a fit of frustration, he wrenched off his wedding band, slamming it onto the table. She snatched it up and hurled it back at him. I exchanged a glance with Ryan, contemplating how many times we found ourselves in this exact scenario. The dispute over the wedding rings descended into a familiar cycle of infidelity allegations. While Ryan and I reluctantly abandoned our attempts to restore order, we sat back, hoping they'd tire themselves out. But their youthful fervor proved unyielding. Sometimes, youth can indeed be a curse. Then, an unexpected turn unfolded before my eyes. Ryan rose to his feet, extending both hands toward the 2 clients. "Enough. I've reached my limit with you too," he exclaimed. "You claim she cheated, she claims you cheated, yet neither of you has a shred of evidence. Here's the deal." Ryan directed his finger at his own client, his voice resolute. "You're undergoing a lie detector test and answering questions." "What the hell? What do you think you're doing?" "You work for me," protested his client. Ryan turned to me, proposing, "And what if we draft a contract? The lie detector results won't be admissible in court regardless of the outcome. Neither side can use them." Initially taken aback, I realized the method in Ryan's madness. I agreed. I addressed my client, pointing my finger at her. "And you'll undergo the same test." "I didn't cheat, he's the cheater," she retorted. "So you claim, but he's wary of your flirtatious behavior with every man. You'll take the test, pass or fail, he'll know the truth." Camila's eyes betrayed her fear. "Are they reliable?" she asked. I softened my tone momentarily. "They're not admissible in court, but they're dependable enough if you're not a psychopath." She pondered for a while before turning to her husband. "Okay, I'll do it." Ryan fixed a stern gaze on his client. "And you?" Silence lingered, and doubts started to creep in. Perhaps he had cheated on his wife after all. Either you take the test or you find yourself another lawyer. I'm sick of this petty bickering, and we're putting an end to it now. He finally nodded in reluctant agreement. Ryan and I hastily drafted a contract stipulating that the test results could not be used in the divorce proceedings, and both clients signed it. While unlikely to stand up in court, we were hopeful it wouldn't come to that with their scant financial resources. Even if the lie detectors confirmed infidelity, it wouldn't significantly impact the final outcome. Once the paperwork was done, we informed the two that they'd received details regarding their test appointments. With that, Ryan and his client exited the conference room. I couldn't help but wonder about the scene unfolding in his office, but I had my own issues to tackle right here. Camila turned to me, tears welling in her eyes. "Are you trying to throw me under the bus now?" It was time for a touch of compassion. I spoke quietly. "You keep insisting you haven't cheated on your marriage. Are you telling me the truth or not?" "Yes, I'm telling you the truth," she asserted earnestly. "Then you have nothing to worry about. Look, neither one of you has a shred of evidence that the other one cheated. Divorce or not, don't you want to know for sure? If he cheated, then get your divorce and move on. But if he didn't, don't you want to know?" I reasoned. The waterworks were starting, and Camila was nodding. "What if he didn't?" "He still thinks I did," she murmured. "Then the test will prove that you didn't. The question you need to be asking yourself is, what will you do if neither of you has cheated? Will you still want the divorce, or will you sit down like two adults and talk it out?" I pressed gently. With that, the dam broke, and Camila started sobbing. As much as I wanted to shake some sense into them, these were two good kids who were simply in over their heads. Emily seemed to materialize out of nowhere with a fresh box of tissues. She sat next to Camila, giving me a discreet signal to make myself scarce. It was my cue to return to work. So, I headed back to my office and started drafting papers for Friday. Sometime later, Emily breezed into my office with a cup of coffee and a bottle of chilled water. She placed a new stack of files on my desk, exchanging a few others, all the while keeping up a steady stream of conversation. "Your 12:30 client is Ken Walker. He's due here in 30 minutes. It's your first meeting with him, and I've scheduled him for 45 minutes. His file's on top. I'll buzz you when he arrives. Don't forget to eat your lunch before he gets here, because you know how you get when your blood sugar is low." With a smile, she closed the door behind her, leaving me to ponder her knack for lifting my spirits. How does she manage it? I extracted my sandwich from my briefcase and delved into the Walker file. Mentally, I retraced my steps, recalling Ken Walker's recent inquiry for an appointment on Tuesday. I dispatched some preliminary forms for him to complete. A swift scan of the documents revealed a decade-long marriage, 2 youngsters aged 5 and 7, and financial particulars falling within the norm. They occupied the stereotypical suburban landscape, a mortgaged abode, cars aged 5 and 7, both employed in the corporate hub across town, Ken, the tech-savvy spouse, and his partner, a personal assistant. Ah, the classic tale of potential workplace alliances. Considering Ken's proposed grounds for divorce due to adultery, my interest piqued. I usually dissuade clients from pursuing such claims, often lacking substantial evidence. Moreover, in custody battles, the rationale matters little. Custody invariably leans towards the mother, relegating the father to weekend visits and child support payments. Closing the file, I concluded again, it's over. Sipping from my coffee, I perused the new stack of files, pondering Ken's forthcoming revelations. Prepared for his arrival, I greeted Ken as Emily ushered him in. A perfunctory handshake ensued before he settled into the chair opposite my desk, displaying a composed demeanor. Skipping pleasantries, we dove straight into business. Let's address the basics first. Your financial disclosure was preliminary and will need official statements for court. It's crucial we date them now to secure the best settlement timing-wise. Understand? He nodded. Both of you are employed, which works in our favor. It could potentially mitigate spousal support, if not waive it altogether. Another nod. It appeared I wasn't unveiling anything unexpected to him thus far. Now, on to the more delicate matter. You have 2 children from the marriage. Please understand, I need to ask this question for legal clarity. Are they both biologically yours and your wife's? Any uncertainties regarding parentage? He nodded, though a flicker of indignation crossed his features. I understand your desire for custody. However, I must caution you, it's an uphill battle. Courts heavily favor mothers in custody disputes. It often takes extreme circumstances for a father to gain primary custody, and even then, the mother is usually granted ample opportunity to rectify the situation. The odds are against you. I'm aware, but at the very least, I want equal shared custody and time with my children. That's a feasible goal, or we can aim for something close to it. I allowed a moment of silence for the reality to sink in. Now, regarding your request to file on grounds of adultery, be aware that without substantial evidence, such claims can be dismissed by the judge. Courts don't take lightly to accusations of infidelity without proof. Ken fixed me with a determined gaze, then leaned forward, dropping a flash drive onto my desk. It's all there: audio recordings, videos, photographs, and a detailed report from a professional investigator. Suppressing a smile, I picked up the flash drive and inserted it into the desktop computer behind me. Ken had compiled undeniable evidence: flirtatious encounters, intimate dinners, and incriminating videos from within their private quarters. While the footage was in pristine condition, it unequivocally depicted the betrayal. Hastily verifying the contents, I refrained from dwelling, understanding Ken's desire to maintain some dignity amidst the turmoil. I swiftly perused the private investigator's report, nodding in approval. Impressive work. How did you come across this investigator? A faint grin crossed Ken's face. Luck, if you can call it that. My wife went away on a supposed week-long business trip, and I have a buddy from college who happens to be a PI in that area. He did me a solid, and I'm still waiting for the invoice. I chuckled. We could all use friends like that. After a brief pause, I added, you're aware that much of this evidence may not hold up in court. The public observations are admissible, but the photos taken inside the hotel room could be deemed an invasion of privacy. Nonetheless, they could serve as leverage during settlement negotiations. Ken nodded, acknowledging the nuances of our legal strategy. His understanding gave me confidence in our approach. Relaxing into my chair, a sense of satisfaction washed over me. Before we proceed, let's clarify one thing. Are you open to reconciliation if we can resolve this? Ken shook his head decisively. The look in his eyes conveyed a lack of forgiveness. This isn't a one-time lapse in judgment. It's a calculated betrayal that's been ongoing for months, with deceit woven into every interaction. To make matters worse, we're colleagues at S Company. People are starting to catch on. Her affair with her boss has tarnished my reputation. I want out of this marriage and a fresh start elsewhere. As Ken laid out his grievances, I felt a surge of determination. Finally, a cause worth fighting for. Leaning forward, I adopted a tone of unwavering resolve. All right. We're proceeding with a divorce filing based on adultery. We'll request a 70-30 split of assets, settling for a 60-40 division including bank accounts. Custody of the children isn't guaranteed, but I'll fight tooth and nail for it. No attorney can promise custody, but I'll do everything in my power, despite potential losses in property and child support. will compensate through a lawsuit against the company. They've not only shattered your marriage but also inflicted severe damage on your professional reputation, and they'll pay dearly for it. Ken's lips curved into a slight smile as he nodded, indicating his understanding. Money is merely symbolic of the vengeance I seek. I'll need the names of colleagues aware of the affair, particularly those who discovered it independently. If you disclosed it to them, it won't bolster our case. I haven't breathed a word to anyone. I got the evidence on Monday, called you Tuesday, and I've been keeping to myself in my office all week. You haven't confided in anyone? Just one friend, but he's kept mum. He went through a similar ordeal years ago and offered valuable advice. Good, keep it that way. It's harder to claim the company sabotaged your career if you're spreading the news about your wife and her boss. And one more thing, Ken. I won't rest until her boss is ousted and she's left ashamed to set foot in the office. That company will beg you to stay. Ken's smile broadened. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about vindication, and I was determined to deliver both in ample measure. Are you still residing at home? I inquired. He affirmed with a solemn nod. And is she? I pressed further. Yeah, his response carried a tone of melancholy. Does she suspect that you're aware? I probed gently. He shook his head. Turns out I'm better at playing dumb than I realized. A smile tugged at my lips. There was a growing admiration for his resilience. That facade won't hold for long. You're at a crossroads. You can confront her and withdraw from the shared bed, or you can take a breather elsewhere for a while. But regardless, you need a permanent solution. We have a guest room. It's my makeshift home office now, but it's finished with a bed. I could relocate there, he suggested. All right, how do you anticipate her reaction? I inquired further. Ken appeared perplexed. Will she plead and weep, lash out in anger, issue threats, and most importantly, attempt to incriminate you? Frame me? Ken's expression shifted to one of concern. I once represented a client whose wife fabricated domestic abuse claims against him. If not for the neighbors overhearing her threats, he could face legal consequences, I explained. Ken's worry deepened. Is there someone you could stay with temporarily? Your uncertainty warrants removing yourself from the situation. I suppose I could bunk with my folks. Pathetic, isn't it? A grown man married with kids seeking refuge at his parents', Ken's voice carried a hint of embarrassment. It's a far better alternative to potential legal trouble, I assured him. He nodded in agreement. When should I make the move? How much longer can you maintain this charade of ignorance? How much longer can you endure the scrutiny at work without addressing it? I countered with a question. I can't keep this up, Ken admitted, shaking his head. Then I need you to make a move today. Call your boss, say you're taking a sick day. Head home, pack only your essentials, clothes, computers, crucial documents like your birth certificate, passport, financial statements, and work-related files. Spend time with the kids, put them to bed, and have a calm conversation with your wife. Let her know you're aware and that you're filing for divorce, regardless of her response. Leave the house. Understand? No arguments, no threats, and under no circumstance should you raise a hand to her. Do you grasp the plan? I asked. I understand, his voice carried the weight of shattered resolve. Reality was crashing down on him. I retrieved a card from my desk. Here, schedule an appointment with her, get your belongings out today, then arrange the meeting for tomorrow with a therapist. Do you think I'm in need of help, Ken? Questioned Ken. Your world has been opened. The one you trusted most has betrayed you, and you're heading into a battle. Trust me, you need support, I asserted. Ken sank back into his chair, exhaled deeply, and nodded. All right, you'll find her helpful. She despises cheaters. Then it struck me, I missed something crucial. Ken, I need to ask you a sensitive question, and I need you to remain composed. Can you do that? Yes, he responded. Have you ever been unfaithful to your wife? I inquired cautiously. He shook his head vehemently. No, never. All right, I appreciate your honesty. Now, I need you to gather recent financial statements and document everything we've discussed. Can you handle that? Yeah, we've got a pretty organized filing system at home, he replied. Now, this next part is crucial. You must heed this advice, avoid contact with her boss if possible. Steer clear of your own boss as well. I'll initiate the filing process soon. If workplace tension becomes too much to bear, claim illness and depart. Your wife may inform her boss, and inquiries may come your way. Be truthful but disclose only what's necessary. If your boss approaches you, speak truthfully. The legal documents we'll submit to the company will mandate your separation from that environment. And one more thing, refrain from rash actions. Do not confront her boss if he walks in front of your car. Remain parked with the brake engaged until he clears the street. Should he visit your office, summon a trusted friend as a witness. Enlist as many friends as possible. You need observers for every interaction while you maintain composure and refrain from retaliation. Do you comprehend? I asked. He nodded in understanding. Say it aloud. Do you understand? Yes, I understand. Good. Any further inquiries? No. Great. You'll navigate this storm. You're taking the lead, but remember, don't provide them with any ammunition. This will test your strength and restraint. I trust you to rise above all. Right after addressing a few more details, I accompanied Ken to the door. Ken, things may worsen before they improve, but you'll emerge from this. Keep your composure and steer clear of hasty actions. I assure you, you'll remain a significant figure in your children's lives. I guarantee it. Understanding, a faint smile and nod indicated his acknowledgement. Given the circumstances, it's the best response I could hope for. Okay, Emily will have some paperwork for you to sign, and there will be a hefty check to write, but I'll earn every cent, I assured him. A genuine smile graced his face as he exited my office. Hey, Ken, ever wonder why snakes don't bite lawyers? I called after him. He glanced back, puzzled. Emily rolled her eyes in anticipation. Professional courtesy, I quipped. His laughter was the desired response. Take care and follow through with the plan. I'll be in touch. I bid him farewell. With Ken gone, I returned to my desk to scrutinize the evidence. Watching the videos elicited no joy, only revulsion. The images served as proof, but the dialogue was enlightening. Ken's divorce seemed inevitable, it's just a matter of who files. Ken's PI was skilled, and the boss's marital status added another layer to the saga. Ken would have his vengeance one way or another. The remainder of the week passed without incident. A court appearance on Friday occupied my morning, with the rest of the time devoted to clients and drafting documents. A week later, in the midst of the afternoon, another settlement conference was slated in the Carter case. This time, a different atmosphere loomed, sink or swim. These two were bound to find resolution come what may. They arrived separately, and we permitted them a few awkward moments in the shared waiting room. When we deemed their discomfort sufficient, Emily guided them into the conference room. Ryan and I were already seated, strategically positioned on the same side of the table, a departure from our previous meetings. We gestured for Mr. and Mrs. Carter to occupy the seats opposite us. What's happening? They inquired, visibly perplexed and off-kilter, exactly the effect we intended. Please take a seat. The test results are in, I announced, observing their palpable nervousness. It's true what they say, only the guilty fear the truth, but the innocent have reason to fear others' perceptions. Ryan took the lead. The polygraph results are in. Would you like to know the outcome? They sat in intense silence, their apprehension palpable. It appears, I continued, that both of you are telling the truth when denying any infidelity. How does that revelation resonate with you? Camila's facade crumbled, tears streaming down her cheeks, while her husband valiantly held back his emotions, albeit barely. We watched, allowing the moment to unfold. Then, it transpired. Camila's husband extended his arm around her shoulders, whispering words of solace too faint for us to discern. She nodded, burying her face in his embrace. Ryan and I remained silent, honoring their intimate moment. After collecting themselves, they sat upright, awaiting the next revelation. I couldn't help but notice they were holding hands, seeking solace in each other's touch. The question remains, do we proceed with the divorce now that you're both aware, or do you opt for dialogue? I posed, sensing their apprehension to vocalize their desires. Ryan took the floor. Daniel, your wife hasn't been unfaithful. Does that impact your stance? Barely audible, Daniel replied, yes. If Camila is willing to compromise, are you open to postponing the divorce and engaging in discussion? Ryan pressed. Yes, Daniel's response carried a fervent conviction. Turning to Camila, I addressed her directly. Camila, your flirtatious nature needs to cease if this marriage stands a chance. Flirting is a betrayal to your husband and diminishes your integrity. Daniel remained faithful to you, that's the silver lining. However, continued flirting constitutes emotional infidelity. It's time to mature or allow Daniel to pursue a relationship with someone who respects the boundaries of marriage. The choice is yours, but delaying may not be an option if this behavior persists. Tears streaming down her face, Camila nodded in acknowledgement. Ryan intervened again. I've arranged for both of you to see a marriage counselor. Daniel hesitated, ready to object. No, the decision has been made for you. You don't need a counselor to be your friend, you need someone who will challenge your behavior. This professional is highly skilled, and if you're willing to cooperate, she can guide you. Are you committed to that? I inquired. They both affirmed. Good. Here's her card. Your initial session is scheduled for Monday at 10 a.m., Camila. Whether you choose to return home today is your decision, but if you do, there are 2 rules to abide by. Firstly, no social gatherings, no dancing, and absolutely no flirting. You're not prepared to involve others in your reconciliation. Secondly, avoid contentious discussions. Spend time with supportive family members if available. Sit together, watch TV, just refrain from tackling serious issues tonight. Focus on nurturing your bond. Can you manage that? Finally, their expressions softened into smiles. We proceeded with paperwork, pausing the divorce proceedings, eliciting even more joy from the couple. They departed resembling 2 enamored teenagers more than a distant couple. I invited Ryan to share a glass of scotch, and he eagerly accepted, raising our glasses in a toast. He mused, did you ever imagine we'd end up in this line of work? I chuckled, law school didn't prepare us for this. We savored the moment, recognizing that sometimes this profession does yield positive outcomes. For the next hour, I attempted to focus on work while reflecting on the day's events with Ryan. If our intervention had backfired, our legal careers could have been jeopardized. Yet rare triumphs like today are worth commemorating. Lost in these thoughts, Emily entered my office. No more clients today, Hayden. Your final meeting concluded. I filed that absurd Carter contract. Let's hope it never resurfaces, she declared. After a momentary pause, she added, they seemed genuinely content when they departed. Meeting my eyes, she bestowed a warm smile. You did a commendable job today, Hayden. Truly commendable. Her praise buoyed my spirits so much that I spoke impulsively. Emily, Would you be interested in grabbing dinner after work? Her expression shifted to one of genuine puzzlement, perhaps caught off guard by my proposition. What did you have in mind? She inquired. I was thinking of a place with tables and chairs, maybe a white tablecloth and a menu offering more than just fried fare, I suggested. After a brief pause, she responded. I've been wanting to try Sonny's sometime, the steakhouse, she said, intrigued. Though I typically preferred beer and pizza, I was open to the idea. Is there another Sonny's? I inquired incredulously. She gave me attitude. Not that I'm aware of. So, what do you say? Without missing a beat, she retorted, is this how you ask a girl out? You don't go out much, do you, Aiden? Unbelievable, I was making an effort here, and she was giving me a hard time. Summoning all my sincerity, I responded. Emily, and softened into a smile. I'd love to, but I need to head home and change first. Can you pick me up at 7? 7 it is. I'll see you then, I confirmed, and just like that, she was out the door. As I sat back, I pondered, what have I just done? If I'm not careful, tonight could cost me the best secretary I've ever had. Checking my calendar, I confirmed no further appointments for the day. Hastily closing up the office, I headed home for a shower, shave, and to don my best suit, all the while wondering, what have I gotten myself into? Epilogue. I did lose my secretary, but not as I had feared. 4 months after that dinner, I proposed, and within 6 months, we were married. We were young enough to start a family yet old enough not to delay. So, about 2.5 years later, Emily gave birth to our first child, a daughter named Mia. 16 months afterward, our son Thomas arrived. Just a month later, I opted for a vasectomy. 2 children were plenty. Ken Walker turned out to be the dream client every divorce lawyer hopes for, a truthful man deserving justice, supported by ample evidence. It became evident that his wife was more interested in marrying Mr. Boss than being a mother, especially when the opportunity arose. After Mr. Boss divorced her, the company let him go, and the 2 lovers disappeared. Ken retained his job, receiving a sincere apology from his employer along with a more generous settlement than anticipated. Now, he's a content single father raising his 2 children. From Ken, I learned something profound. They say single mothers with children struggle to find a partner willing to embrace instant fatherhood, but for single dads, children can be a magnet for romantic interest. It appears women of all ages are drawn to Ken once they witness his parenting skills. I continue to practice law, and my firm has grown. I've brought on new associates, and we've diversified our practice. Divorce cases remain a part of our portfolio, and I still catch up with Ryan Hughes from time to time. When we do, we reminisce about the time we took the unconventional step of administering polygraph tests to our clients, ultimately reuniting a couple and giving them another shot at happiness. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed them, please consider liking and subscribing. And if you haven't already, feel free to share your thoughts on these events in the comments below. Take care.